Good morning, everyone. Josh's Severe Weather. Happy Tuesday morning to you. We continue to track what's about to be Tropical Storm Helene, likely to strengthen significantly as it moves towards the Yucatan Channel tonight and tomorrow morning, and then across the Eastern Gulf tomorrow into Thursday. Today, we have not seen any major changes in the intensity forecast, but we have seen a little bit of a slowdown in the forward speed. It may take a little longer to get into the Gulf, which is never a good thing. So landfall now expected Thursday evening, somewhere around the Big Bend of Florida. We're going to talk about the changes to our watches and warnings, changes to forecasts, what we're noticing now, what will actually happen inland after the storm makes landfall and heads up into the southeast and the Tennessee Valley in this video. We'll also take a look at the rest of the tropics as well. So I appreciate your time today. Hope you guys have had a great week so far. Obviously, we've got ourselves quite a storm that is expected to develop and strengthen significantly over some very warm water with low wind shear here tonight, tomorrow into the first portion of Thursday. And I continue to forecast this to be a little stronger than what the National Hurricane Center is forecasting. I'm a meteorologist. I'm not waiting on them to make a forecast. I personally feel this could be a little stronger as a Category 4. Outside chance it could even make it up to Category 5, although since the storm is getting some wind shear right now and not yet organizing to the point where it's going to rapidly bomb, we still have some time for that to change. We do have hurricane watches now posted for portions of the Florida West Coast and Panhandle and Big Bend area. This is my track showing the storm becoming a tropical storm today, hurricane tonight as it moves into the channel, and then rapidly intensifying between midnight tonight and Thursday morning from Category 1 to Category 4 as it gets closer to the west coast of Florida. This will have impacts for you on the bay, Tampa Bay area, and up the coast. We'll also have some storm surge and coastal flooding across southwestern Florida. And still a chance that this track could shift a little to the right or left. In my opinion, it's going to be anywhere between these two uprights here. So that does keep you in the path if you are in Tampa, St. Pete at this point in the potential path. But right now that track is to your west. This storm is going to grow. It's going to be a bigger storm than Idalia last year. It should be bigger than Debbie was earlier this summer. So just something to keep in mind there. And because it will be becoming bigger and stronger before landfall, I do think we are going to still see hurricane conditions spreading inland, perhaps all the way into southern and central Georgia, before the storm really does wind down into a remnant low by the time we get towards Friday and Saturday. Lots of rain coming with this. I'm going to break down everything for you guys here in this video. I'm going to do my best to hit on everywhere, but we also have limited time and I got to get to work here. But you can see on the map, this is potential Cyclone 9. We have aircraft in there trying to determine this morning if, in fact, it's a tropical storm. The circulation was a little bit broad yesterday, but there were tropical storm force winds. We're still seeing that today. The official Hurricane Center forecast Category 3, but there's still time between this and landfall, and it's going over the hottest part of the Gulf. We do have another system that could become a depression or storm in the central Atlantic towards the end of this week, and we have Hurricane John, which hit as a Category 3, now weakening to a tropical storm. It looked like it was going to go into Oaxaca. I know I said it wrong yesterday, and I apologize, Oaxaca, but it actually made a little bit more of a parallel move left along the coast and made landfall just over the southeastern tip of Guerrero, which is the state that includes Acapulco, which we all remember was hit really hard by Hurricane Otis last October. So they're still dealing with fallout from that storm and unfortunately dealing with a nasty storm here this morning. This is the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center, expecting a major hurricane Thursday before landfall. Hurricane watches now posted for a couple hundred miles of the coast of Florida and inland. That includes Tallahassee, Tampa Bay, St. Pete, Lake City, and of course the areas that got hit really hard with the last two in the Big Bend. We do have tropical storm watches surrounding those across central Florida, including Orlando, Sarasota, Bradenton, down the southwest Florida, including Naples, Fort Myers, and all of the lower Florida Keys and Dry Tortugas. And closer to the storm now, we have both tropical storm warnings and hurricane watches for the northeastern Yucatan, including Cancun and Cozumel, western Cuba, and we have tropical storm warnings for the Isle of Youth and for the Cayman Islands, which are getting hit hard with rain and some gusty winds this morning. Here's a closer look at that for you guys to see here. And the storm is beginning to move to the north and west, away from the Cayman Islands. It's basically coming around an upper level low to its west, but eventually, as a trough moves down, it should make a right turn right through the Yucatan Channel, a very favorable spot for storms as they move through here to continue to intensify, and will make a turn more to the north-northeast, with landfall expected here after 2 p.m. Thursday as a major hurricane. In my opinion, it's probably going to be in the evening hours between 7 and 10 o'clock. This is a few hours slower than what we were looking at yesterday. It's also a little bit more to the right of where forecast tracks were yesterday, which were more towards the Forgotten Coast. Now they're more on the eastern side of the Big Bend towards Keaton Beach, which is unfortunately becoming quite the vacation spot for storm and hurricane chasers. Not a place that wants to see another hurricane. But you can see that official cone here does include all of Pinellas and Hillsborough counties, or most of those. It includes Tampa, St. Pete. Well, Tampa, officially, you are just right of the cone, but if it goes right here, you're right in the spot that doesn't need to be hit. So keep that in mind. Spring Hill is in that path. Gainesville is in the path, and Tallahassee, so both big schools in Florida. Valdosta, Georgia, Albany, Macon, and Atlanta is very close to the path. We may likely have a tropical storm impacting Atlanta and Athens, and that will cause power outages all the way inland into North Georgia as we get into Friday. So something to keep in mind. And it doesn't just completely fizzle. We are going to see significant amounts of rain spreading through the western Carolinas, maybe some strong winds there as well, and rainy weather all the way up into middle and eastern Tennessee, Kentucky, and southern Indiana, and parts of the Ohio Valley. Actually, that's going to be a good thing for you guys here in Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia. As this storm comes your way, you do need some rain. I don't think we're talking a big-time flood at that point, so the tropical moisture is going to be a benefit. But obviously, too much too soon could be a problem in the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida. So here's what we're looking at for the likeliest time where the winds are going to start heading downhill fast. Of course, that is already beginning to occur right now across the Caribbean, but we'll see that occurring tomorrow morning across western Cuba, as well as late tonight, tomorrow morning over northeastern Yucatan. We will start to see winds picking up over the Florida Keys, approaching tropical storm strength here later tomorrow afternoon and especially tomorrow night. And then southwest Florida, likely after midnight tomorrow night into Thursday morning. Tampa Bay, those winds are going to pick up in the morning Thursday, and then the Big Bend and Panhandle will see winds picking up in the afternoon Thursday, and then southern Georgia should see stronger wind by the end of the day into the evening. Same for southeast Alabama. And then you'll see still a potential for tropical storm winds into the Atlanta, Augusta, Athens areas here late Thursday evening and Thursday overnight, South Carolina as well overnight Thursday night, and the western Carolinas and eastern Tennessee by early in the day on Friday. Here's a look at the wide view here, and you can see our storm continues to grow even though the core has not established yet. It will in a little bit here. We also see Hurricane John, which is now weakening along the coast here of the Guerrero state here in Mexico. And aside from that, really nothing of major concern for the time being. We can certainly talk about more storms in the future, but let's get through these here first. Here you'll see this is the circulation here of future storm Helene, a potential tropical cyclone. The core is actually in here on the western envelope. So we do have some southwesterly flow coming through here, disrupting that center from forming, but that is expected to weaken. There's an upper low right in here over the Yucatan. It is weakening and moving west. And after it does so later today, that should stop impinging the wind shear on the western side of the storm and allow it to organize pretty significantly. Over here, you see what was Hurricane John, now weakening, will be a tropical storm here. It's hugging the coast, interacting with mountains, but producing incredible rain. So even though this storm has weakened significantly since it made landfall last night, or overnight, I should say, it is not just going to completely fizzle. It's going to continue to bring incredible amounts of rain. Here's the water vapor image, and again, you can kind of see how things are laid out. Here's the upper low. You kind of see this twist in here. It is retreating to the west. Very dry air in place across the Gulf, but this upper low is actually drawing that moisture up with the storm. So it is going to moisten up here, especially in the eastern Gulf, and that is going to create a favorable environment for this storm to continue to feed off of that moisture and grow and intensify. This is the circulation of John now right along the coast here, and you'll see that's actually going to drift west. It's going to get kicked westward. And then there's a massive area of high pressure here that's going to build over the storm for a day or two and eventually shift east when our next trough moves down into the south central states. So that high right now is keeping the storm from escaping to the right, but because it's moving to the right and we've got this upper low here and the trough that's going to drop down, the lane is actually very small for this system to come up and likely heading into Florida. And I've been talking about this for a week now. I know the models did do some shuffling on both sides, as you would expect. Until a storm gets closer to forming, that is going to happen. But climatology has been favoring Florida all along, and that's why I've been giving Florida about a week to prepare for this. We don't know exactly where it's going to hit or how strong it'll be when it hits, but we know a large area is going to be impacted. And so that's the reason I've given you guys a week to prepare for this. But now it's go time. Now we definitely need to prepare. It's no longer speculation. So here's a look at the infrared. And you can see definitely seeing thunderstorms that are continuing to blow up here on the eastern side. This is Grand Cayman here. Lots of rain coming through here, going to cause some flooding here across this area. But we still have a little bit of southwesterly wind shear to deal with for the rest of this morning, and that is the difference between a potential cyclone and a strengthening tropical storm. However, I think that will be coming to an end here later today. This is the radar from the Cayman Islands. You can see Grand Cayman in here. Actually, you can't see it because it's swamped in rain here, but a big band, or deluged in rain here, but a big band of heavy rain moving through here, some tropical storm force winds. That's why we have that tropical storm warning, mainly for Grand Cayman. The smaller Caymans are not getting it as bad. That is going to continue to drench you here right on into tomorrow morning if you're in the Cayman Islands. We're probably going to be picking up locally a foot of rain or more. National Hurricane Hunter aircraft are flying through the storm. They are picking up winds aloft over the Grand Cayman in the 50 to 60 mile per hour range. You see these yellows and oranges here indicating tropical storm conditions. However, the storm center here does not have enough well-defined wind on its western side, so technically it's not yet a tropical storm. It's so close, but it's just not yet there, but it is heading in that direction. So something we're definitely watching here is another plane that's flying through, and again, you can see winds are still a little bit too light here on the western side of this core of low pressure here. If we were seeing winds like this near the center, we would definitely have a tropical storm, but it's not quite there. So we got a little bit longer before it gets to that, but it will be a tropical storm before tonight, in my opinion. Looking at the ship's model here, not my favorite model in the world, but it does have some features that are important to study. The wind shear here before landfall is coming down, and it's going to be very low here tomorrow into Thursday morning, very favorable. Ocean water temperatures above 30 degrees C, very favorable. Relative humidity, 75% for the next 2.5 days, very favorable. And oceanic heat content is at record levels over the next 24 to 36 hours, also very favorable. So all of these favor rapid intensification, and you can see here 4 to 5 times the climatological average of rapid intensification expected over the next 3 days. 65 knots would put us up close to 100 knots, which is a Category 3, and in my opinion, it'll be stronger than that. I'm going to show you guys why. Here's the wind shear map. Red's indicating unfavorable wind shear, so we still have some of that on the western side of our storm, which is right here, but it is going to be lifting out. And take a look at how favorable this wind shear is going to be here by tomorrow when it moves into the Gulf of Mexico. Definitely what you don't like to see. We can have all the hot water in the world, but if there's wind shear, it's not going to lead to a strong storm. Now we have low wind shear and very hot temperatures in the ocean here. Both of those favor rapid intensification. Here's a look at the oceanic heat content as well. Our storm is about here. It is going to go right over the hottest part of the Gulf and here. When it comes to oceanic heat content, that means not just warm water at the surface, but a lot of warm water down below, a deep layer of warm water, which obviously is going to be the fuel we need for a strong storm. So today, our hurricane models have not shifted a whole lot. You can see very good agreement. We are on the right side of this cone for the time being. The farthest west that the models have this is Apalachicola, Port St. Joe. So nothing shows it hitting Panama City or westward across the western panhandle. The farthest east models take it up to about Keaton Beach, with the area around Wakulla being favored at this point for a landfall spot. However, because the storm is still kind of in that formation phase, it's not a fully developed hurricane, just beware. Know that these can still shift, and we have seen that so many times. It could shift closer to Tampa. In my opinion, I don't think it's going to shift west. The stronger the storm gets, the more likely it's going to feel the upper air effects and try to go right of this track. So I would favor more of this side of the storm than I would this side of the storm for the time being. So that is my personal professional opinion here. We'll see how that ends up going. Intensity forecasts are all indicating this is going to be a hurricane. Yes, there's some here that don't. These are not very good models to use for hurricane forecasting. Yesterday, we had some getting to Cat 5. We still have Category 4, and I definitely don't want to rule out Cat 5 just yet, even though less are showing that. I show you one that will. Here's the upper level low that's going to be dropping down here. Here's the red shifting north and east. And that ridge is very strong here. In fact, it's getting squeezed by this strong upper low and then this very ample ridge here. So there's going to be a ridge that protects the Great Lakes and the mid-Atlantic states from most of this storm. This upper low is actually going to yank our storm up and then pull it around it and kind of do like a little do-si-do Fujiwara effect here. So it is going to get to a point where instead of going up the East Coast, it is going to get twisted into this upper level low and send the moisture up into the Ohio Valley, which is a very good thing, as I mentioned before. Eventually, that moisture gets kicked away here, and we'll see some of that on the East Coast here later next week, but by then, the system is flattened out quite a bit. Here's a look at our GFS model showing the timeline on this. GFS not quite as strong today, but still shows a very powerful storm. A little bit later, though, landfall now showing up as 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening on Thursday as a Category 3. That's the GFS. And then weakening to a Category 1 Thursday night in central Georgia, and then tracking a little farther east in the other models, all the way into places like Greenwood and Spartanburg and Asheville, and even up to about Boone, North Carolina on Friday morning, with gusty winds near that center and heavy rain certainly as well. Here's the Icon model, which is pretty close to the GFS, no longer a direct hit on the Tampa Bay area like it showed yesterday, but same exact spot, Keaton Beach here as a Category 2 to 3 hurricane. And then this track is a little farther to the west in the GFS in the longer term. It doesn't go into South Carolina. It stays in North Georgia and then heads into East Tennessee. But the timing is pretty much similar. Now let's look at the hurricane models. These are specially fine-tuned for hurricanes and picking up on things like rapid development intensification. You can see the HWRF is showing this strengthening this afternoon into a strong tropical storm and a hurricane by this evening and going right through the Yucatan Channel. It actually has a very quick intensification rate overnight tonight. If this is correct, and in my opinion, I think it might be just a little premature, but it is on to something. You could go to bed tonight with a strong tropical storm and wake up with a Cat 2 hurricane in the morning, maybe even a Cat 3 if it's correct. In my personal opinion, I think it'll be a Category 1 when we wake up this time tomorrow morning, but then it's going to be deepening to a Category 3 in the afternoon and probably a 4 by tomorrow night. That's my personal forecast. It's growing. Either way you look at it, it's growing, and these winds are going to lash the coast. The entire west coast of Florida could have hurricane force wind gusts from basically Port Charlotte, Cape Coral on northward here. And you can see the HWRF is definitely a scary looking scenario here with a near Category 5 intensity, about 150 mile per hour hurricane here making landfall sometime between 5 and 8 o'clock. And then slowly winding down here as it moves inland down to about a Category 1 in Georgia Thursday night, and then a tropical storm by Friday morning as it approaches the Savannah River Basin here, or CSRA, and up into the upstate of South Carolina at that point. HMON, similar scenario here. I know these models did show some incredible strength, deep Category 5. They're backed off a little bit, which is good, but they're starting to trend upward again. But you can see this would be a low-end Category 4 hurricane, landfall in the same spot here, a little later than the HWRF, but probably in the evening hours, and then a little bit farther west track. Not spinning down quite as quickly as what the HWRF was showing. Here are the two HAFS models. These have actually done pretty decent this hurricane season. And you can see it is likely we have a hurricane by morning tomorrow morning east of Cancun and east of the Yucatan, and then a quickly strengthening hurricane tomorrow afternoon down to Category 2 and Category 3 by evening and Category 4 by Thursday morning here. And the HAFS model, while not showing pressures below 900 millibars, still shows an incredibly strong storm with pressures here in the low 920s. Making landfall here a little bit farther down the Big Bend from Keaton Beach here, maybe closer to Steinhatchee and Cedar Key. And this is a very scary scenario. This pressure puts us about where Michael was when it made landfall near Panama City, Mexico Beach, as a borderline Category 5. I hope that's not the case, but I could see how it ends up being the case. But again, we do have a couple days here to watch. It'll weaken as it moves through eastern Georgia, and then it'll be a remnant low by the time it approaches Asheville and Brevard here by Friday afternoon. Here's the other HAFS model. Real quick, guys, I'm going to move this along here. Same scenario here, strengthening quickly here. Tropical storm this evening, becoming a hurricane overnight, Category 2 by morning, Category 3 by afternoon, and getting close to Category 4 by later in the evening tomorrow night here. This is actually the strongest of the models, showing a 915 millibar storm as it passes west of Tampa Bay. Down the 909, that would be a well-established Category 5 hurricane. with landfall just a little later than the other models, probably about 9 or 10 o'clock on Thursday night. Again, just down from Keaton Beach, that same exact area here getting hit and then weakening significantly as it moves inland. They all agree this is going to go into the Western Carolinas, North Georgia, and East Tennessee. All right, real quick, let's look at winds and where the strongest winds are expected. Again, if this shifts to the right in any way, Tampa Bay gets in on these hurricane-force sustained winds. That's why we have that hurricane watch. If it shifts to the left, Tallahassee gets in on those. Right now, we're kind of in between the two. You can see, though, tropical storm force winds extend all the way northward and eastward. We're probably fine in South Florida. It'll be a little breezy. The Keys will get tropical storm force winds. Orlando could have tropical storm conditions for a while. Jacksonville and Brunswick and St. Simon's Island are going to have some rough weather, albeit not as rough as your neighbors to the left of you here, to the west of you. Here's into Georgia, and you can see, depending on how quickly this winds down, we very well could see hurricane force winds extending into eastern and southeastern Georgia and tropical storm conditions near Atlanta and especially east of you in Atlanta around Lake Lanier and into the Blue Ridge here. Definitely wind gusts over 60 miles per hour across portions of South Carolina, maybe even close to Columbia and Charleston, less as we get farther north. And here's a look farther north. We are going to see some stronger winds as well across the foothills region of the Carolinas, places like Rutherfordton, Lincolnton, up to maybe Lenoir, as well as Linville, possibly even to Boone and Asheville could have some stronger winds, maybe even Charlotte. So Friday is one of those days where it's possible we could have school closings across most of South Carolina and a good chunk of western North Carolina, and maybe even parts of southwestern Virginia here as well. By Friday afternoon. Let's look at rain real quick. This is a blend of all of the models and not a ton of rain in the peninsula areas except on the Gulf Coast. Most of our rain expected near and actually to the west of the track after landfall here, right around Apalachicola, potentially 10 to 11 inches, 4 to 6 around the Big Bend, several inches inland as well. We could still see very heavy rain around the Keys and into the Tampa Bay area. Looking farther north, this could be an inland flood for you in North Georgia, upstate Carolinas, locally 10 inches of rain right around Sassafras Mountain and over towards Brevard and Pisgah Forest, something to keep an eye on there, maybe Landrum as well. And looking into Alabama, we could see some heavy rain as well in the eastern portion of the state, close to 4 inches or 5 inches in the Birmingham area, 4 around Huntsville, eastern Alabama, Auburn, Oxford, Opelika, 5, maybe 6 inches of rain. And then looking back to the Carolinas here, we're getting heavy rain this morning right around Carr Lake here in these areas. We're going to see more of that on top of it. We don't need any more rain in the Carolinas. I'm ready to send it back to where it came from. But right now, this doesn't look like a major rainfall for the areas that got devastated with flooding early last week around Brunswick and New Hanover counties. You will get some heavier rain potentially from this, but we're not looking at widespread flooding. That, though, could be an issue here in the Western Carolinas. And finally, across parts of the Midwest, Tennessee Valley, some welcome rain coming here by Friday night and Saturday. I don't think we're dealing with flooding in Kentucky or Illinois or Indiana or Ohio or West Virginia, but we're going to get some beneficial soaking rain for at least the first portion of the weekend. Here's the rest of the tropics, looking pretty good here. Low pressure bringing some drier air into Bermuda. We still have this little flare up, but it's starting to diminish. The central Atlantic is in pretty good shape here. Let me just move this along for you guys here. Pretty good shape. We do have some flare-ups. We're going to have some heavier rain across the islands later today, but nothing of organization at this point, just heavy rain. And then zooming to the eastern parts of the Atlantic, you can see our next system moving past the Cape Verdes. This one is probably our next named system. Isaac would be the name on that. It is likely going to gain latitude and recurve out to sea and not be a threat. There is a potential system behind it that could develop as well, but neither of those looks to be a threat to land. And finally, a catastrophe here across Guerrero. We are seeing heavy rain in the Acapulco area. Tropical storm warning across the areas that got hit really hard as the storm moved in. It rapidly intensified. Take a look at where it was yesterday morning as a tropical storm, then a hurricane by lunchtime, and then a major hurricane by evening. We went from depression to Category 3 in about 30 hours before that landfall occurred. That just goes to show you that with hot water and low wind shear, things like this are very common and can happen. And those conditions aloft are what we're going to be seeing here in a day around the Yucatan Channel, albeit we're not going to be seeing interaction from Mexico. But just something to keep in mind here. But definitely, if you're a praying person, pray for the folks here in this area. They're going to be looking at 20 to 30 inches of more rain. And just fortunately, that's not going to make its way into the Gulf, but it's going to rain out across parts of southern Mexico over the next couple of days. I hope everybody has a blessed Tuesday. I thank you for your time. As always, I give all the honor, all the glory to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. God is good. I know I talked about yesterday how there's things that are out of our control. That doesn't mean, though, that God isn't here to provide us the strength that we need. God is such a good God. He's created us. He created the earth. The laws of nature have taken shape, of course, but we still have a place to go when we're in trouble. Psalm 46 says, God is our refuge and strength, and ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. But there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. And that is our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And I am excited for the future, going out in faith, going out in joy, that despite all of the trouble that people are dealing with today, the natural disasters, health, financial, you name it, despite all of the trouble out there and all the chaos, going out in faith and not fear, and knowing that the Lord is there to provide that strength and refuge to you, is a choice that I really pray that you make. So, because it is the choice that you don't want to get wrong when your time comes. So I hope you all have a wonderful day. If you have any prayer requests, I'm happy to pray for you. And I will be back on here later today. Have a blessed day. See you then.